I've picked out one Wonderkid from every edition of Football Manager, even going so far back in the record books into the Championship Manager days. So come with me on a nostalgic trip back through time as we go through the Wonderkids of FM Past. Now, I say I've gone all the way back in the past for Championship Manager, but actually way back in 1992, Championship Manager 1, they didn't actually have real players in the game. So I'm going to make one up. I'm going to go for James Smith. Do you remember him? What a footballer he could become in that game. But let's have a look at the next edition, which was Championship Manager 1993. In CM93, you could have signed a Swedish striker by the name of Andreas Andersson, who was about 19 years old at the beginning of the game. After this stage, he did go and have a decent career, which included stints at Newcastle and then AIK later, and then he became a football coach in Sweden, not quite reaching the games that you could get him to in-game. And that's what we're going to do for every Wonderkid in today's video. I'm going to pick one out from each game and then let you know what became of them in their real life. Did they meet the heights that they could have done in Championship Manager or Football Manager, or were they a disappointment? And there's a few on here, but some of them made it. If you enjoy this type of thing, please subscribe to the channel. We are aiming for 100k because that would just be a huge milestone to meet, and I'd love it if we could get there. Next up, in Championship Manager 2, the next edition, you could have signed Erik Nevland, Norwegian striker, 18 years old at the start of the game. He had spells in the Premier League and then into Norway. He retired in 2012, ending his career at Viking FK, which was his first professional club. But back in CM2, he could become so good for you. Next up, Championship Manager 96-97. I have gone for a legend of Championship Manager and Football Manager past. It is none other than Taribo West. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, wasn't he amazing to sign in like CM 0102? Yeah, he was. He was on a free transfer. We all bought him, right? He was there and he was the best one to get. Legend. But he was actually really, really good back in CM 96-97. He was 22, so maybe I'm stretching it a little bit to call him a Wonderkid. But he was a little bit younger at this stage and he was really, really good to go and sign too. He went on to have a notable career in Europe. He played with Inter Milan, Auxerre. He retired in 2008. Now we're getting into some real names. CM 97-98, I have gone for another legend, Ibrahima Bakayoko. As I say that name, I know that some of you will be like, oh, I remember signing him maybe in this edition, maybe in slightly later ones too, where he was also a Wonderkid then. He's about 20 in CM 97-98. And in his real career, he retired in 2009 after a bit of a journeyman career in Europe. He had stints with Everton, Marseille, Montpellier. Never quite reached the heights that you could get him to in that Championship Manager game. CM3 is next, and I've gone for one of my favourite ever players, honestly, Pablo Aimar. Now, if you are of a certain vintage, around about my age, let's say, you will remember Pablo Aimar, the player that lots of people say inspired Lionel Messi. Even he was so good. I remember him playing for Valencia against Liverpool a few times and just running the show. Legendary Argentinian playmaker. He played for Valencia, River Plate. He's now a coach of one of the Argentina youth teams as well. But back in CM3, when he was about 18 years old, if you bought him or got hold of him at that stage, what a player you had on your hands. Getting into the time where I started playing Championship Manager now, and I've gone for, in Championship Manager 99-2000, I've gone for Kim Kallstrom. Now, we know he ended up at Arsenal in his real life career, but if you signed him back in the day on this Championship Manager, or even a few of the editions around this time, you were always going to get an amazing footballer. And he had a real successful career in real life as well. He played with Lyon. Of course, I mentioned he played for Arsenal. He's now a TV pundit in Sweden. He was about 17 in Championship Manager 99-2000, and if you got him, great player to sign. Oof, the next one. Let me tell you, this is a legend. This is actually on my favourite ever Championship Manager or Football Manager game. It's my first one, Championship Manager 0001. Now, I know loads of you will talk about 0102 being the absolute GOAT. I know this, but back before that, a year before that, this is when I started playing. And I remember signing Kennedy Bakircioglu in every single save that I did. He was Swedish midfielder, Turkish descent. He was about 19 years old at this stage, and he was so good. Bring him into your club and he would be the best midfielder in the game. Legend in my eyes. In real life, he retired in 2019 after a career in the Netherlands, in Greece, and then, of course, in Sweden, where he became a cult hero at Hammarby. And now the big one, CM 0102. Let me know in the comments down below if this is your best ever, your GOAT save. In fact, what is your favourite ever Football Manager or Championship Manager game? I know that loads of you are going to say CM 0102. There are so many of these Wonderkids that I could have picked out. I picked out two, actually, because I had to. The first one, Cherno Samba if you like legend status, cult hero, Cherno Samba, English Gambian striker. He was about 16, 17, I think, at the start of this game. And if you brought him, he was just the best striker. Him and another one that I'm going to mention too. In real life, he never really made it, did he? A bit of a disappointment. He retired early in 2015. He played for a few clubs in England, never meeting that potential that he could have done. He's now a motivational speaker, amongst other jobs. And the other one that I had to mention was Maxim Sigalko in 0102, the Belarusian striker. He was 18 at the time. And I know that I said this about Cherno Samba, but this guy was the GOAT striker in the game if you signed him. He was not good in real life, and his career was cut short by injuries, and he actually passed away in 2020, sadly, definitely never fulfilling his virtual potential. But what a time, what a memory to have now. What a player he was back in Championship Manager 0102. Maxim Sigalko, legend. We're up to Championship Manager 4 now, and I actually made a video about this game recently. That'll be in the little card that's up here if you want to go and watch it, comparing it to the sort of delayed release of FM25, because that happened back in CM4 as well. But once you were playing this game, and once they'd fixed a lot of the bugs in the game, if you went and signed this man, Alexander Farnaru, a Swedish attacking midfielder, he was about 19 at the start of the game, he would be the best that you could ask for as an attacking midfielder. In real life, he didn't quite reach these heights, although he did have a solid career. He played mostly in Sweden, Switzerland, Italy, became a reliable attacking midfielder without pulling up too many trees. After CM4, we had CM0304. It was a weird naming convention that we had back in those days, rather than just the yearly updates that we have these days. But in that game, 0304, if you signed this man, Gianpaolo Pazzini, you were guaranteed goals. He was about 19 at the start of the game, Italian striker. He went on to have a pretty successful career in the end. He retired in 2020, played in Serie A, played in Spain, reliable goal scorer for Fiorentina, Sampdoria, Verona. But in CM0304, he was a bagsman. And then the Football Manager legacy begins. FM 2005 was the first game that was titled FM after the split between Eidos and Sports Interactive. They went their separate ways and FM was born. And in that game, a legend was also born. Freddie Adu was in that game at around about 14 or 15. And if you signed him, you were getting the next big thing. There was an incredible amount of hype around his career, but in real life, as I'm sure you probably already know, didn't quite reach those heights, did he? His career never really took off. He played for a massive long list of clubs and not really doing anything. Benfica probably being the most reputable of those teams. Didn't ever really fulfill his potential as an FM Wonderkid, did he? And the same could probably be said about our next Wonderkid for FM 2006, Kurlon. Now, if you hear that name and you're a bit like me, you think of one thing, and that's him dribbling along with the ball on his head like a seal. They called it the seal dribble and named it after him. His career didn't quite reach what it could have become because there was a lot of hype around him as well. It was marred by injuries and he retired in 2017 after a load of stints in Brazil mainly, as well as short stints in Europe as well. FM 2007, if you signed Anthony van den Borre, you had a right back that could take on the world. Him and Vincent Kompany from Anderlecht were the two that if you could get them, you've signed an amazing defence straight off the bat. But I've gone for Van den Borre because he was 19 at this time in 2007. He didn't reach those heights in real life. He had some spells. He did play briefly in the Premier League, but most of his career was spent in Belgium and in Italy. His career was marred by injuries. He never quite reached the heights that he could have done. And instead, he just goes down on this list as another FM Wonderkid that had all the hype in the world, but never quite reached it. Now, to call the next Wonderkid a failed Wonderkid would maybe be a little bit harsh, although that is something that I have done before, in which I did do a video about failed Wonderkids, which, again, it'll be pinned up as a card up here if you want to go and watch it. Bojan Krkic was one of those Wonderkids. In FM 2008, he was about 17 at Barcelona, just breaking through. He was apparently the heir to Lionel Messi's throne. He didn't quite make it because he ended up playing for Stoke. No offense, Stoke, but it's not quite Barcelona, is it? Had a good career in the end, played for Schalke, played for a few teams too, but again, didn't quite become Messi, did he? FM 2009, Carlos Vela. I remember signing Carlos Vela back on FM 2009. The Mexican forward that ended up breaking through with Arsenal, but then going on to have a successful career in the MLS and Sociedad before that. He was so good on this game. He was again, it's very Messi-like in the way that he played the game. If you signed him, you just had all the skills and a great winger off either side, I remember as well. Maybe even as a striker if you wanted to. Loved him, as I did also love our next Wonderkid for FM 2010, Kieran. Now, I feel like at this stage we're getting into more recent years and there's definitely going to be people in the comment section going, oh, I remember this one, or you missed this one. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I've picked out one Wonderkid. Obviously, each game has multiple that I could have chosen from. I've gone for Kieran for FM 2010, maybe because I remember signing him and him actually not being as good as I was hoping him to be. I remember reading on sites that he was supposed to be amazing in the game and he wasn't quite as good as I thought he was going to be, but he was also hyped to be really good in real life, but his career sort of fizzled out in real life. Unsuccessful stints at Barcelona, loads of loan moves, and then he just sort of retired quietly. FM 2011, I've gone for Yaya Sanogo. Remember him? I'm sure you do. I know some of you do. French striker. He was about 18 at this stage. He went on to play for Arsenal in real life, but on this game, he was an absolute bagsman. I actually signed him. I think it was FM 2021, FM 21. And he was, in my Plymouth save, amazing again. And it just felt so nostalgic to be rolling back all those years. About 10 years later on. He struggled with injuries, didn't quite make it at Arsenal, went on to play for a few teams in England and then in France, and then became a free agent after that. We're up to FM 2012 now, and for this game, my Wonderkid that I've chosen is Juan Iturbe. Went on to have an okay career, actually, but back in the day, 2012, the Argentinian winger was about 18, and he was so silky, so smooth, and was just really, really good. His career in real life was a little bit inconsistent. He went on to play for a whole host of teams, Porto and Roma, played for Bournemouth on loan, played 2 games for them, as well as then Gremio, and now plays for Cerro Porteño in the Paraguayan league. But back then, let me tell you, he was a beast. And talking of beast, the next Wonderkid, how can I make a list of FM Wonderkids without including this guy? Carlos Fierro, FM 2013, the Mexican striker who's 18 in this game, could also be included in the game before and the game after, and maybe even the game after that, because in lots of FMs, this guy was the serious business. Another legend of the FM Wonderkids list, for sure. He was not so good in real life, though. It was a steady and unremarkable career in Mexico. He played for teams like Juarez FC in the Liga MX. Not quite the absolute legend that he became in most people's FM saves. For FM 2014, I struggled to find one that was really a standout in this one, but I've gone for Max Meyer, who was 18 at the time and was just a really good German midfielder that you could sign, would go on to become one of the best in the game if you got him early enough. Had a good career, actually, in real life. Not quite the career that FM promised him to have, but he did play in the Bundesliga successfully and played in the Premier League for Crystal Palace as well. Now, this is a name, though. FM 2015, one that I think most of us here would have signed if you were playing back then. Eder Alvarez Balanta. Those 3 names together make up for one of the best FM Wonderkids, I think, of all time. Colombian centre-back. If you signed him in this game or the game before it or the game after, you just got yourself an amazing centre-back. Had a good career as well. Didn't quite reach the elite levels, as is the case for most of these Wonderkids, but played for Basel and Club Brugge as well as River Plate before that, and then Schalke sort of most recently, before most recently finishing up his career back in Colombia. For FM 2016, I'm going to go for a player that I think actually did reach the heights that he was promised to in FM. Maybe not quite. Maybe you'd imagine him going to one of the top teams in the world. But Ruben Neves is my choice. He went on to have, as we know, an amazing career. He now plays in Saudi Arabia for Al Hilal, but he was great for Wolves in the Premier League, captaining them, playing for the Portuguese national team as well. I think he is one that almost did reach his potential, although maybe he didn't quite have that big top team move in his career that maybe he promised to have. FM 2017, I've gone for Gabigol, Gabriel Barbosa, another one that we're getting quite recent here, so I think a lot of you will have signed him. He would be the best striker in the game, or he'd be rubbish. It was my experience. Let me know if you had the same experience with him. He was supposed to be like the new R9 when he first broke through in Brazil, and he has been successful playing for Flamengo in Brazil. He had stints in Europe too at Inter Milan, but didn't quite become the new R9, did he? We're getting into the most recent 6 years now, and FM 2018, this is one that I definitely use, maybe in later games, but you could have got him back in 2018 too. Pietro Pellegrini. Now, you have to admit it in the comments down below if you ever used him. What a striker. He was 16 in this first game, and he would become the best striker in the world. I remember pairing him with our next Wonderkid, and the 2 of them being the best 2 strikers in the world. And you'll see when I say who the next striker is, why that is the case. But just like so many others on this list, Pellegrini didn't reach those heights in real life. He played for Monaco and played a few games, went on loan to Milan, on loan to Torino, joined them permanently, and he's just most recently gone out on loan again to Empoli. Never really scoring many goals. The most he's got in a season is 3. I think he scored 3 in most games for me back in the day. And now I mentioned him, and this is one that definitely breaks the convention of being a failed Wonderkid. The next Wonderkid for FM19, I just had to include him. It's Erling Haaland. I mean, he's become the best striker in the world, possibly ever. That is quite a bold statement from me. But what a player he was back in the day. You could sign him from Salzburg, get him to your team, and he would just unleash hell on every team that he played against. What a striker, and we know what he's like in real life. We know how his career's gone. He's Erling Haaland. And Haaland's career is maybe how lots of people would have predicted our next Wonderkid's career to have gone. It's Sebastiano Esposito, and if you could have signed him, which I definitely did back in FM 2020, he would score so many goals for you. What a player. He starts the game at about 17, 18 and then became one of the very, very best in the world. I remember having a season where he scored 50 plus for me. What a player. Not been quite that in real life. He's had some interesting loan spells in Italy. He's been playing in Switzerland, and at the moment, he's yet to have reached his potential. Most recently, he was also on loan at Empoli, much like Pellegrini before. Maybe someone at Empoli plays Football Manager, and that's why that's happened. 4 more Wonderkids to go. FM 2021. I'm sure loads of you would have played this one, and loads of you would have experienced Yusufa Moukoko and just how good he was on FM 2021. The German striker hasn't, again, reached quite these heights with Dortmund, where he still remains to this day. But he has made 76 appearances and scored 17 goals, and time is on his side. He's still only 19, of course. So maybe we're getting into the stage now where these Wonderkids, they've still got all of their careers ahead of them, haven't they? And that takes us into FM 2022 with another player who's also a striker and also playing for Dortmund. Karim Adeyemi was brilliant back on FM 2022. And if you signed him, he would develop into probably the best strikers in the world. It would appear that they've decreased his potential in more recent years, but he's still a pretty handy pickup in FM games today in FM 24. FM 2023, I had to include this man, Endrick. Again, he's just made the move to Real Madrid, where he seems to be just tearing it up, and he's got the world ahead of him in terms of his career. But in FM 2023, you could sign him when he was 16 and then wait until he was able to come and join you, and then he'd become a world. If you got in there before the database update, when Real Madrid then had him as a future transfer, which ruined it for all of us, right? You ruined Endrick. Come on, Real Madrid. At least wait until we can sign him on our games. And that takes us up to finally FM 2024. Can you guess who it is? You probably can, right? It's Lamine Yamal. It has to be. He's the biggest Wonderkid, I think, in the world of football right about now at 16 years old. He's broken into the Barcelona first team. He's won the Euros with Spain. He is a superstar in the making. He's a superstar already, actually, and that was reflected in this year's game as well, where I remember doing a video on him where we just simulated his career, and he went on to be so good. He is so good. I've actually just been using him in my journeyman save, where we've ended up at Liverpool as well, and he's still so good. Lamine Yamal is our final Wonderkid. Who will be the Wonderkid in FM25? Maybe some predictions in the comments down below. But it's been a fun little video to put together this. Just going back down memory lane, a little bit nostalgic. I hope you enjoy it. A little bit different to usual. Let me know in the comments if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And leave a like if it was fun. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.